Fine. I'm Janine. I work a volunteer with SCORE Utah. For those of you who may not be completely familiar with SCORE, there is a slide here up on the screen right now that talks about what SCORE is. We offer free mentoring to small business owners, entrepreneurs, or people that just have an idea. You can do that. We typically do it all virtually. And it is free, entirely free to the mentee. We also offer workshops and webinars like one we have today. These workshops and webinars are all recorded. You can find the recordings out on either our YouTube channel for the chapter of SCORE Utah, or if you're an attendee, we'll email you a recording afterwards. We do also have a lot of these archived on our website, so you can go out and look at webinars that have taken place in the past and join those. We have this vast library online as well for you as a business owner or as someone who's thinking of starting a business. You should go out there, make yourself familiar with the guides and the templates and the checklists, blogs, etc. that we have. There's a lot of information out there for small business owners. Here is a quick slide to just show you how to get in touch with us if you're interested. There's a QR code there you can scan to learn more or to set up yourself as a mentee and request a mentor. We try to match you with a mentor who has some experience or know-how or expertise in your area. We're a small chapter. We have about 34 volunteer mentors right now. There's our website is there and how to get in touch with us, phone and email. So I'd invite anyone who can or has an interest in joining SCORE Utah to please let us know. I'm going to take my slides off here now, and I'm going to introduce our speaker here, if I can get my thing to work. So Brian Kuepper. Brian is a entrepreneur himself, as well as a business owner and franchise consultant. So we're excited to have him here to talk about franchising and the pluses and minuses for you as a prospective franchisee. So Brian, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Happy to be here. Thanks everyone for joining. Today we are talking about, and let me share my screen with you here. All right, so you should be able to see my screen. Hopefully I'm sharing the right one. Today we're talking about franchising. What is a franchise, the regulation around franchising, different industries, different investment levels, how do you finance a franchise? And then if you are interested in franchising, how do you get started? How do you actually find one that potentially would be a good fit? This talk is meant to be somewhat high level, kind of a high level overview of really all things franchising. And from an owner's perspective, I'll talk a little bit about this. I'll talk more about that as owner's perspective versus a consumer's perspective. But this is going to be from an owner's perspective. I'm happy to dive deeper into any topic, really. If we run out of time, happy to chat with anyone after. But if you have questions, please enter them into the chat. Let me pull up my chat here. Enter them into the chat. I'll try to keep an eye on it. Or if we have somewhat of a small group, so if you have something, raise your hand or unmute and interrupt me. Let's keep this interactive. This is for you guys. So if there's questions that you have, definitely let me know. I'll try to keep some time at the end as well for some questions, but feel free to interrupt me as we go. So a little bit about me. I live in Utah. Been here for about 3 years now. My wife and I and new dog. Born and raised California originally. I've been in franchising just over 10 years. I'm a certified franchise executive. I've been in franchising in a variety of roles, from helping people buy franchises to helping small franchises grow and expand and scale. So I've been on kind of both sides of the equation. That picture of the bottom left, we own for any of you that are in Utah or in Salt Lake, we own a day spa in the Sugar House Brickyard area. We opened that about six years ago this summer. If you're doing the math, yes, that was summer of 2019, and COVID hit about 8 months after we opened. So that was quite an experience. I could probably give another talk on making it through a pandemic, but it was quite the experience. Definitely learned a lot. So there's really three types of business ownership. You can start a business from scratch, you can buy an existing business, or you can take the franchising route. Um, it's just one of the three. I have some experience in all of this. I've started a software company from scratch. But today we're talking about franchising. So, let's start with just what is a franchise? So a lot of people think of franchises when they hear the word franchise, they think of big companies, they think of the McDonald's. But really, all a franchise is a small business of any industry, any type that wants to grow, they want to expand. Well, they have two options. They can either grow through just hiring more people, opening up more locations, creating a giant corporation like a Starbucks, Chipotle raised, millions and millions of dollars and grew, or they can grow through licensing. And that's really all a franchise is. It's a business that wants to grow uh, through licensing. And yes, even in the franchise space, some franchise locations are owned by bigger corporations, bigger groups, but really most franchise locations are just small business owners. They're just small business owners that are licensing a particular model so that they can own their own business without really starting it from scratch. So that's really all a franchise is. Now, in exchange for this license to use the trademarks, the products, the business systems, products, everything else that goes into that. There's always an initial franchise fee, and there's always some sort of ongoing royalty. The royalty is usually where I hear people say, well, why would I want to pay 5% or 10% or 15%, whatever the percentage is over time? Well, you're doing that so that you have access to all of their business systems. The reality is a good franchisor will lose money in the short term on almost every franchisee they bring on. If you think of what a royalty is, it's a percentage typically of revenue. So if you're in the beginning, when you first open up your business, your revenue is pretty low, which means that the royalty is also very low. So the royalty is low that you're paying the franchise, but it requires a lot of support, a lot of training in order to get a new franchisee off the ground. Part of the reason why uh, being part of a franchise, you'll typically be able to get off the ground faster than doing it on your own. It's because of all that support. Now, nothing's free, right? It's you're paying a royalty for that support in the beginning. Now, in the long term, if you're in business 5 years, 10 years, the support that you're required is pretty low, right? You've been running the business, you know how to run the business, um, and your royalty payments are much higher now. So that's where the franchise really makes their money. When you're in business and you're starting to really make some money, you're making seven figures, and now a small percentage of that is significant money to the franchise, and they don't have to support you. That's where they really make their money. So in order for a franchise to succeed, they need you to succeed. And you can think of that royalty as really investing back into the brand and increasing the overall value of that brand. You'll hear sometimes in franchising the 7 year itch, and it's really, you're in business for 7 years and all of a sudden you're paying a lot of royalties and you forget all of the support that they gave you in the beginning. It's pretty common, and so you'll see people leave. Within 7 to 15 years or 7 to 10 years is pretty common. Some people hold it for longer, but you'll see people build up, and then 7 to 10 years they'll sell the business or pass it on to a child or something like that. But that's really what the royalty payment is and how to look at it. How to look at it would be as a line item in your P&L. So as you're evaluating franchises, every franchise, as I mentioned, will have an initial franchise fee and an ongoing royalty. The initial franchise fee, think about that as a line item in your opening cost. So I'm going to make up some numbers. Let's say your initial franchise fee is 50,000 and it's going to take another 150,000 to open up your business, whatever it is. Okay, so the way I look at it is the total cost to open up that business is 200,000. The build out, the equipment, the product, and yes, the initial franchise fee are just line items within that. The royalty is really just a line item in your monthly expense. It's really easy to get hung up on, whoa, the initial franchise fee is so expensive or the royalty is so high. But really, if you look at it from a line item, the way I look at businesses is how much money is in my pocket at the end of the day. Really, that's all that matters to me from a financial standpoint. I don't care what the total revenue is, and I don't necessarily care what the margin is because there could be there's businesses where your margins are 80%, but you're really never going to take home more than 20 or $30,000. And there's businesses where your margins are 10%, but you're taking home seven figures. And so really at the end of the day, how much money am I making? How much money am I actually taking home? That's the way I would look at a royalty. It's a line item within a monthly expense. So when you're building out your pro forma, which I encourage everyone to do, if you're not familiar with a pro forma, it's very similar to a P&L. It's just P&L looks backwards. Pro forma is forecasting the future. So you're taking into consideration all of your monthly costs of what you believe your monthly costs will be. And then you're forecasting what your revenue should be, and your royalty is just going to be a line item. If you're considering franchise versus doing it on your own, I would highly recommend doing the same thing. Build out a pro forma for your own business. It won't have the royalty, of course, but building that out to see, are you actually going to make money? There are people that will help with that. I have some happy to share some resources. I don't myself, but there's some accountants and CPAs that specialize in building out pro formas and helping people analyze that. Happy to share those resources with anyone. Franchising is highly regulated, and it's what you'll receive is called a FDD, Franchise Disclosure Document, and what's in this document is everything that has to do with that franchise. So this might be anywhere from a couple hundred pages to 600 pages long. You'll have all of the franchisor information, including any bankruptcies and litigation. Now, bankruptcies and litigation will be listed if there's anything that has to do with that company at the corporate level. You're also going to see if any of the corporate executives have bankruptcies or litigation against them. So you'll know, even if it has nothing to do with the franchise, that their CEO had a bankruptcy 8 years ago. That's going to be listed in this document. All of the costs, of course, that go into it, you'll see actually a line item list of the cost that goes into the investment. So if it says, I'll just use that $200,000 investment. If the investment is 200,000, yes, you'll see the franchise fee at 50, and then you'll see every cost that that they believe will go into making that business work, from working capital to marketing, insurance, equipment. Everything will be listed in that investment level. You'll also see the actual franchise contract. So you're going to receive this document usually within a week or two of looking at a franchise. And evaluating a franchise might be, say, 2 months. So you'll get it right away. So you'll have this information right away. The franchise contract will also be listed in there. And so you'll be able to see exactly what you would sign if you sign it and got to the end. So if you review that contract within the first couple of weeks and you there's something in there that you wouldn't want to sign, you don't have to continue looking at them. There's really no negotiating with a franchise. everyone's signing the same contract, which is why they just give it to you up front. They're not going to take you to the end and then you negotiate, redline the contract and that sort of thing. It doesn't really happen in franchising. Here's the contract. It's sort of take it or leave it, because everyone is the same, and that's to protect the brand. Really, they can't have somebody going rogue and changing something down the road, because of the regulation that goes into franchising. They give it to you right away. Uh, the regulation comes initially from the federal government. So this document is approved by the FTC initially. And then on top of that, there's about 13 what are called registration states, that are, if you think of like a New York or California, that once it's approved at the federal level, it then has to be approved at the state level to open up in those states. This sort of reapproval process happens every 12 months. So every 12 months, there's an updated FDD, that you'll have access to. You're also going to see territory earnings claims will be listed in there. You'll also see all franchisees, both current and past. So one of the big differences between franchising and I would say just about any other business or business opportunity, licensing even, or coaching program, is that they don't need or have to disclose anything, right? And they certainly are not going to tell you about the people who have failed their system. Where in franchising, you'll see every person who has ever bought into that franchise, both successful and the ones that failed. And you're always going to have failures in every system, right? I mean, McDonald's arguably is one of the most successful franchises in the world. They have failures in their system. It's not, I would say it's not a red flag that they have failures, but it is important to understand a couple of things. Why did they fail? And were they like you? Right? One of the benefits of franchising is talking to franchisees. And do you have a similar background? Would you run the business in a similar way as some of the top producers there? Um, if the people that have failed in a particular system, if there's some consistency or some common trait that is maybe not the reason why they failed, but it's just a common trait among all the people that are struggling, then that could be a red flag. But everybody is going to have failures in their system. It's common. Not everyone succeeds in corporate. Many people have had jobs and it didn't work out and they replaced them. It's the same thing in franchising. The franchisor does their best to approve people that they believe are going to be good candidates and good franchisees, but there's a learning curve there, and not everyone makes it. We'll talk more about what is a fit in the coming slides and how to really understand and find that fit, to give yourself the really the best chance for success, I would say. Um, so industries, there's more than 4,000 franchises in the States alone, in almost 100 different industries. There's almost 1 million units that are out there. When you think about what a franchise is, right, what we just talked about, it's just a small business that wants to grow through licensing. And so there's a franchise for just about every industry, every type of business that's out there. We usually think of food when we think of franchising. And yeah, there's a lot of food that's out there. But the 20% are quick service restaurants, as you can see in this graph. When we think of them first because they're everywhere, right? They're constantly in your face from an advertising standpoint, from driving around, that sort of thing. Um, but one of the things I hear a lot with clients uh, is that there's so much competition. Well, the response is yes, there is a lot of competition because that's where franchisees thrive or franchises thrive. You don't see a lot of franchises in new industries. A franchise thrives in an industry that has already been proven. It's fragmented, but it's been proven. It's a large industry. And so that's where you're going to see them. And so these industries that you're looking at, they've been around for a while. Nothing here is unusual. Some of the popular categories, children's education, auto, pet care, cleaning, health and wellness, senior care, home repair, hair care. I mean, these businesses have been around for 50 years or longer, and they'll be around for another, 50 years or longer. That's where the franchisors really play. And so when you're looking at a franchise, there's going to always be a lot of competition. I wouldn't be too worried about it. Uh, I would just look at the area, talk to the franchise. Just about every franchise will have some software, some demographic software that they use to identify, is any particular area a viable area. And so you might, depending on where you are, looking at a franchise, and they might say, your area just isn't viable. That just doesn't hit the metrics that are needed in order to build what we consider a successful business. Um, Shelby has a question here. What are your thoughts on states that require an FDD to be registered with the state versus states that don't require? Which option do you recommend and feel is the best option? So I would say there isn't, it just depends on the state. So whatever state you live in they might require it, or they might not. The FDD is typically the same. So it's not that they're changing or they have their own FDD. Some states like California, as an example, they just have a lot of regulation. New York has a lot of regulation. And so part of their process is approving a franchise before they're allowed to open or go in there. So I don't think it's a pro or con. If you're, say, in California and they require that, or you're in a different state and they don't, it's just the process. Where it can get challenging is once a franchise submits the new FDD, think of it as submitting your passport for renewal. The moment you give your passport to the government, you no longer have a passport and you have to wait for the new one. It's the same thing with the FDD. So once a franchise submits their FDD to, say, California, as an example, uh, their current FDD is expired and they can't sell new franchises. So if you're looking at a franchise and they say, we're going to have to renew our FDD, so you basically have, 3 weeks to decide, or we're going to have to wait a period of time before the new FDD is uh, is renewed, is approved. And that could be, in some states, it could be 3 weeks. And in some states, it could be 6 months. You don't really know. So hopefully that answered your question, Shelby, um, as far as which option is best. I do recommend typically that you use a franchise attorney to review the FDD. And I highly recommend that you don't use any other type of attorney. Every attorney can review any contract. They're trained to be able to read and understand any contract, but you will want somebody specific to franchise in order to understand. Again, they're not going to, if you give an FDD or a franchise contract to a traditional business attorney, they're going to redline that contract um, and hand it back to you. There's no redlining, there's no negotiating with a franchise. It is what it is. So what a franchise attorney will be able to tell you is, are the pieces of that contract standard franchising law? Because if there's something in that contract that you don't like and you wouldn't sign, it's very possible, I see this often, that it has nothing to do with that brand. It has to do with franchising. And maybe that's just a sign that franchising is just not a good fit for you for whatever reason. The contracts are going to read very one-sided. That it's going to be all about the brand and all about corporate. The reality is, yes, it's all about the brand. It's maintaining that brand integrity, and it's, as when you're a franchisee, it's also helping you, right? Because you don't want somebody go rogue and change something or offer discounts or products that you don't offer, and then all of a sudden the brand, there's no consistency. That's the whole idea with the franchise, is that there's consistency. um, and so I definitely recommend finding a good franchise attorney that specializes in that, and having them review it with you. One thing on the name recognition, um, or the type of business. When we think of franchises, we're typically think of businesses that we've seen, and which is why we usually go towards food. Um, the name recognition doesn't make them successful. It's the systems and processes in franchising that makes a system or a franchise successful, right? It's the marketing, the sales, the operations, accounting, everything that has to do with operating that business, and growing clientele. That's what makes them successful. So uh, name recognition can be great, right? That's maybe the cherry on top. But the reality is, even if somebody has strong name recognition, you still have to dig into the business systems and see, is this a franchise system that I want to be part of? And just because it doesn't have a name recognition, doesn't mean that you won't be successful. Again, you just want to dive into the business systems. There's a lot of, I mean, there's 4,000 franchises, right? The vast majority of the franchises that are out there, we've never heard of because we don't need to. We don't use their services. There's a lot of, we replaced our garage doors recently because they were having an issue. And the company my wife picked happened to be a local franchise. And she picked it just searching and trying to find the best business. And she had no idea that it was a franchise. So it's really just the systems that make it successful. So who's the franchisor looking for? So good franchise companies, they're looking for franchisees that can run the business. They're looking for good general business skills, whether it's management skills, people skills, communication, potentially sales and marketing skills, operational skills. It really depends on the business, on who they're looking for. But they're not typically looking for people that are experts in any particular industry. Uh, Usually there's some caveats to this, but most franchises, they really like you not to have experience in their industry. Because in every business, in every industry, there's going to be 100 different ways of running the same business. And they like it where they're going to give you the plans of running that business, and they want somebody to come in with general management, people, operational skills that can take that plan and just run with it, just execute. They're looking for operators, they're looking for executors that can take those plans and just run with it. They don't necessarily want your experience from a different brand or a different company that might conflict with their systems, because every system works. You just have to follow the system. When you start breaking it up, that's when things break down, right? Think of nutrition, right? There's a lot of good nutrition protocols and programs out there. When you start picking and choosing what you want from each one, it breaks down. If you want to lose weight and you're on the carnivore diet, that's great. But if you start including bread, the whole system breaks down. It's similar here. They want people that, here's the system, here's the plan. Now just go build that house and run that business. Uh, we all have transferable skills, right? And so when we think of management skills, people skills, don't get too hung up on, what you do in your corporate life, because the question is, how do those skills transfer into a business? And we all have them. They're all going to be different. Every business is going to want something that's a little bit different. But that's what's going to help us identify really what is the best fit for you. If you're managing, you know, 300 people, that's going to be a different transferable skill than somebody who is an individual sales contributor, right? But they both have their own unique transferable skills. And so that's what you really want to uncover, is what are those transferable skills and how do those transition or transfer to owning a business. and that's ultimately what you're looking for. There's a couple different ownership options in the franchise space. There's an owner operator model, manager model, area developer. So the operator model is going to be your typical owner operator. You're going to buy a business, it's a full-time business, and that's what you're running. The manager model, this is you'll hear manage the manager type model. This is you'll see this a lot. It can be anywhere from 5 hours a week to 20 hours a week is typically where that falls into the semi-absentee model, and it just depends on that business. So don't assume that it's 5 hours a week. If you're talking to somebody and they say 20 hours a week, it still falls in there. Same with five. The spa that we opened falls into that manage the manager model. We've never been the front desk. We've never managed it every aspect ourselves. We have a great manager that runs the operational side, the day-to-day side. And at this point, I spend about 5 hours a week on that business. I have actually before this on Wednesdays, I have an hour call with our leadership team, and then I have a couple one-on-ones, and that's sort of the main piece of it. The one-on-ones with the team is typically a 90-minute massage once a week. So there are some perks depending on the business that you own. So that's a managed manager model. Area developer is a little bit different. There are some, if you're searching Google or ChatGPT, there's different franchises use different terms. So area developer in this case is going to be somebody that buys, let's say you buy the whole state of Utah, or maybe you buy Utah and Idaho, and you own and have the rights to all of that area. You'll typically open at least one, maybe two locations yourself of whatever the business is. And then as new franchisees come in, you're going to help support them and onboard them. So you're kind of a mini franchisor in that case. Some people call area developers master franchisees, but that's the idea. In exchange for that, you'll often get a percent of the initial franchise fee, and you'll also split the ongoing royalty with corporate. Corporate likes it. It's a great way to scale a business without having to scale their internal support team as much, because you're there hands-on in that area, growing that. So for people that are real empire builders, you want to build something large, and you want to build essentially an annuity for yourself because you're getting a royalty now from all the other franchisees in your area. The area developer can be an incredible resource. If you have a full-time job, or you have another business, and you want to keep those, the manager model can be a great option for you. If you have a job and you don't like it and you want to get rid of it, you want to get out of corporate and you just want to do something, you want to own your own business and you're willing to go full time, the operator model is a great opportunity as well. There's definitely more options in the owner operator model than say a manage the manager. Not all franchises can you just buy, open, and hire a manager and you're off to the races. It really depends on that particular business. So let's talk about the investment. So the investment is kind of all over the place. The majority of them are going to fall into that 100 to 500 range, I would say. There's some under 50,000, very few. I would say the majority of franchises, when you're looking at them, are going to start around 100K, plus or minus a little bit, and into that 250. If it's owner operator, it's typically under, or the ones that are under 200,000 are typically owner operator, not always, but the majority of them are owner operator. Once you get over 200, 250, 300, that's when the brick and mortar businesses start. because most of the investment has to do with opening the business, whether it's a build out, product, equipment, um, and that's where most of the investment goes. So there's zero correlation between the investment and the return on that investment or potential return. It's just a different type of business. So if it's a work from home business, no product, no equipment, no build out, 100,000, you could have an incredible return on that business. If you're opening up a boutique fitness, and a treadmill alone could be $10,000. You have 10 of those. There's 100,000 right there in treadmills. And all the other equipment and build out that could easily be a four, five, six, $700,000 investment. It doesn't mean you'll make more with that investment. It just means it's a different type of business. So think of your investment when you think of your investment. Think of it as a ceiling. What is the high that I want to look at, that I'm willing to invest, not the goal. And then you always look at everything below it. It's very different than looking at a house as an example. If you're looking at a $500,000 house, you're not typically looking at a $300,000 house. It's either in an area you don't want, or it requires work that you don't want to do. In franchising, there's really no difference in quality based on the investment. So figure out whatever your high is, that's your ceiling, and then look at everything below it. As far as financing, the most common ways are SBA loans, HELOC, or your 401k money. I'll talk about that in a second. SBA, there's two most common ones: the SBA Express, which will fund up to $150,000 with typically 10 or 15% down. And then there's a 7A loan, which will fund up to 5 million, and typically 20 or 30% down. So cost of the business, your down payment is that 30%, and then you typically finance the rest of it. And that's a typical way of funding a business. If you have the full amount cash, or you have a partner and you can come together and you don't have to take a loan out, then that's even better. Just some typical loan qualifiers. There's nothing rocket science here. A decent credit score. You'll need usually no more than about 30% as your cash injection, and then you'll need some sort of collateral to cover the loan. This could be cash. If you have a W-2 job, then that they're going to take into consideration that. It could be a rental property or a house. It could be a coin collection. It could be really anything, anything you want there. And then I mentioned the 401k. It's not just to pull out your money. There's a program called ROBS, ROBS. It's a rollover business startup, and it's a way for somebody to use their 401k money and invest in their own business. So the IRS has says program's been around for a long time. The IRS has said if your 401k is your money that's pre-tax, that's investing in other people's public companies, basically, right? And so the IRS said if you want to invest that money in yourself, then in your own company, you should be able to do that. There are a couple guidelines around this. The 401k has to be part of it can't be part of a current job. So if you have a W-2 job and you have a 401k, you won't be able to use that. You have to be able to roll over the 401k, and you can't roll it over if you're working at the company. It also has to be a C corp. Your business entity has to be a C corp, which has some tax implications. So it can be a good way to do it. For our spa, we did a combination of loans. We did partial 401k rollover, and we did partial loans in order to fund it, and it worked out for us. Why even risk it in the small business world? Well, if you look at the success of small business over 2 years, about 64% of businesses are still in business. About half of them have closed over 5 years. The difference in franchising, after 2 years, about 80% are still in business. 5 years, 70%. There's no guarantee in business in general. Not all businesses, I would say, that close are also because they failed, right? So keep that in mind. There's a lot of reasons why somebody wants to move on from their business. But the success rate in general in franchising is higher. Again, it's not right for everyone because of a lot of the things we've talked about. Yes, you are paying a royalty. You are you're taking um, their building plans and you're building that house the way they have it set up. If you're the type of person that wants to have that creativity, you want to be able to source your products where you want to do it, or you want to be able to have a service that isn't on it, then you know that's more entrepreneurial than the franchise model. I look at the franchise model on a scale. So on one side, you'll have your entrepreneur. I like to use Steve Jobs as that example, right? He built a company. He's so much of an entrepreneur that he gets fired from his own company. And then on the other side, you have your corporate executive that just thrives in that environment. The franchisee is in that middle. They're on that scale, and every person is slightly different on that scale, and every business within franchising is slightly different. And at some point, if you go too far towards the entrepreneurial side, then franchising isn't right for you. Starting a business on your own is going to be the best fit. Or on the other side, right? Some people, they really like the idea of franchising or business ownership, but they ride that other line, that corporate line, too much. And the reality is, well, maybe you just need another job. Um, you know, Franchising isn't right for everyone. Business ownership isn't the right path for everyone, but it can be a good fit uh, if there's a fit out there. So, how do you find a fit? So let's talk about, what do you do if you are interested? So what you want to do first is you want to separate what the business does, the function of the business, with the function of the owner. One of the um, one of the challenges that I see a lot of people when they start looking at franchising or businesses is they're looking at the business from the consumer's eye. I'm interested in that cookie shop because I love cookies and they're always busy. Well, what you need to do is look at the business from the owner's eyes. What is the owner doing on a day-to-day basis, a monthly basis? And is that a good fit for your skill sets and what you want to do ultimately? We don't want to buy ourselves another job that we're going to hate or get tired of. We want something that, yeah, it's going to be a lot of hard work. That's business, that's life. But are you going to enjoy it and be proud of it? So the first thing is separating that, and then build out your business model. So you're going to talk through and think through and write down all aspects of that business. I like to say, you wake up tomorrow morning and you're a business owner. What does that look like, right? How many employees do you have? What is the business environment? Are you waking up and you're going to a home office? Are you waking up and opening up a local store downtown? Are you throwing a t-shirt and jeans on and you're going into a warehouse? Um, are you full or part-time hours? What are those hours, right? There's businesses that Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, no nights, no weekends. There's businesses that are 24 hours a day on call, right? If you're in the disaster restoration business, yeah, you might get a call at 2 in the morning to fix something. Uh, and then types of customers. These are just some examples. There's 100 more. But basically, think about your business. Take the service, product, industry out of it for a second, and just think of, what does that business look like? How many people am I employing? Am I employing anyone? Maybe I don't want anyone. I want an assistant, and that's it. And who are they? Right? Are they skilled employees? Are they high school kids? Are they MBA students? And really, really think about who would be, what does that business look like? Once you have this business model, then that's when you start researching businesses. So I wouldn't suggest looking at businesses, because we're going to look through it from a consumer's eye. Look at it from the owner's eye. So build it out first. What do you want it to look like from an owner? Then start looking at businesses, and you are essentially matching that business model you've created with actual businesses. Um, and then once you start talking to them, you'll be able to find out, are they looking for somebody that has your characteristics, your attributes, your goals. Every franchisor is looking for somebody a little bit different. And it's really that fit that makes the franchisee successful, which ultimately makes the franchisor successful. So they're looking at this in a similar way. This is not I have enough money, I can buy whatever I want. You have to be approved by the franchise. And they're looking for people that are going to make them money and be successful and make money. So some of our recent clients, the point of this slide is really to show you that your transferable skills cross industry. The engineer who opened up a successful haircutting business, right? Very different than what they did in their day to day, or the Apple exec that got into a massage business. That Apple exec has never performed massage, right? He's not a massage therapist, but the business of massage therapy, that particular business was a good fit for them. The mortgage broker and the commercial cleaning, right? It was just from an owner's perspective, they were a very good fit, which is what made them successful. As far as the timeline and the steps on reviewing a franchise, so I put this as far as what I typically do with clients, and I would suggest for the most part, if you're doing it on your own, I would follow this process. It can take anywhere 3 to 4 months to evaluate different franchises. The PFA, that second one, that's an assessment that I use. If anyone's interested, it's free. You're welcome to take it. I can send it. I'll have my contact information here. You can reach out to me. I'll send you the link to it and you'll get a copy of it. It's just an assessment. They've used the attributes from like a disc profile, Myers-Briggs, predictive index. They've used attributes from all of that in order to create one specifically for business ownership and franchise ownership. So it kind of helps identify, what type of business would be out there. Then you build your business model. It's kind of where it starts. After you build your business model, start identifying businesses. I usually recommend starting with 3, maybe 4 businesses. It's very easy to get sucked into the black hole of I'm looking at 100 different things, or it's like going on Zillow and just looking at houses. There's too many out there. So you really want to, that's why starting with the business model is so important. Then you talk about businesses, pick 3 or 4, start talking to the franchisors. You're going to review the FDD. Then you're going to start talking to franchisees. This is a big step, talking to franchisees. If you're talking to a franchisor and they don't recommend talking to their franchisees, that is a huge red flag. They should have happy franchisees. Sometimes it can be tough to get in contact with them because they're running their businesses, but the franchisor should encourage this. So talk to the franchisees. You'll start the financial process, and then you're going to attend a discovery day. This is usually on site at their location. Some of them now do them virtually. You'll hear the term discovery day, meet the team day, confirmation day. It's really all the same time, or the same information. You're going to meet typically the operations team. It's just a way to have some more one-on-one time. Some of them do it in a group setting, but it's an important part of the process as well. As I mentioned, talk to a franchise attorney, or any other outside resources that you might need, whether it's a CPA, accountant, that sort of thing. You're going to finalize your financing, and then you're going to be awarded the franchise. And they'll tell you if you're awarded or not. Once you sign and wire the franchise fee, you are now a franchisee. If there's brick and mortar, you'll start the build out process, the training, and then you're open. So as I mentioned, franchising is not right for everyone. But if you have an idea where you want to own a business, you don't really want to be by yourself, you don't want to do it all on your own, then franchises can be a great way, a great avenue. It's kind of the hybrid between a corporate executive and that entrepreneur, right? It's that hybrid model. You're somewhere in the beginning or in the middle of that. So that's all I have. We have about 10 minutes left. So I wanted to open it up to questions. here's my information if you want to shoot me an email or a text message. Again, I'm happy to send you the assessment, or if you have additional questions, I'm happy to answer those as well. But are there any other questions now?
I don't see anything coming in. Uh, any questions? You have a couple minutes to talk with Brian here.
That usually means I either did a really good job explaining or I confused everyone and they don't know where to start.
Well, you've
Hopefully
made an
not the
impact
latter.
either way. Yeah, there you go. Well, folks, I will, this slide allows you to reach out to Brian directly if you have more questions or you would like some more guidance or thoughts on how you might be able to move into a franchise role. Brian, thank you so much for the information. It's been really interesting, a lot of interesting information. I almost want to go out and buy a McDonald's, but then again, maybe not.
Maybe not a McDonald's. I'll help you find something better than McDonald's.
Okay, yeah, okay. All right, great. Oh, here's a question came in. What are your thoughts on states that require an FDD versus ones that don't require it? Is one option better?
Yeah, Shelby, I thought I answered this before, but maybe it wasn't clear. So I might need you to, I don't know, hop off mute and answer. I would say it doesn't really matter. It just depends on what state you're in. It's not worth moving to a state that doesn't require the FD. So they're all going to require the FDD. The question is, does the state need to approve it or not? Think of it as your driver's license. I believe Arizona, the license is good for a very long time, where in California, it's good for a few years. That's kind of the difference where I'm not going to move to Arizona because I have my license for a long time. It's just a requirement for them. Let's not forget that anytime there's a regulation, there's fees involved. So it's also a way for the state to gain money from the franchises. And so I would say no, it's not better or worse. It just is.
Okay.
There are going to be, I will say, there are going to be franchises are that will thrive in certain states outside of the FDD, that will do better in certain states or have additional regulation in those states. And so when you're looking, depending on what state you're in, it will somewhat determine what businesses you'd want to get into. And so that's where it will come into play, but not so much on the FDD registration state or not. Hopefully that answered your question.
All right, fantastic. All right, well, with that, folks, thank you again. You have Brian's contact information. Please reach out to him with your questions. And if you want to watch this video again, it will be archived on the Score Utah website as well as on our YouTube channel. So you'll be able to see that in about a week. It takes about a week for us to move that over. So it has been recorded. If you wanted to watch it one more time or share it with someone, you're welcome to find it there. All right. Thank you, Brian, so much. This has been great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you as well. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.